I didn't buy a house. I claimed a life. That's the only way I can explain it. There wasn't some fairy tale moment where I held a key up to the sunlight like in those cheesy home buying commercials. I didn't pop champagne or sign the deed with some fancy pen. I just stood there on the porch, breathing in the soft Louisiana air, watching the wind shift the moss hanging from the oak across the street. And I thought, this is mine. Every brick, every nail, every inch of that small craftsman home. I paid for it alone. No cosigner, no gift from family, no one peeking over my shoulder saying, "Are you sure you can handle that?" It was the first thing in 34 years that belonged to me, without conditions, comments, or compromises. I'd get up early, sit with a cup of black coffee on the porch, muffin on my lap, and just look at the flower beds I planted by hand. Nothing fancy, just marigolds and lavender and a few herbs that were holding on despite my lack of gardening experience. And it didn't have to be perfect. It just had to be mine. I didn't tell anyone when I bought it, not because I was hiding something, but because I didn't want it to be explained away. That's what my family does best. Turn milestones into lectures and celebrations into concerns. I was the youngest, the practical one, the helper, not the one who made bold moves or owned things. They never said it outright, but the way they treated me said enough. It was always Silas, the heir. He got the down payment for his first house before his wedding. Dee, my sister, the quiet artist, was bankrolled through grad school with no hesitation. But when I brought up starting a photography business, they looked at me like I'd asked to join the circus. They weren't cruel, just dismissive. And that, in some ways, cuts deeper. One time, I paid for dinner for the whole family. It was my birthday. And still, Mom picked the restaurant. Silas ordered first. Dad asked Dee how her gallery opening was going. No one even looked at me until it was time to split the check. "You sure?" they asked, as if I had accidentally offered. That's who I was to them. The one who pitches in, not the one who builds. So when I stood in the living room of my new house, hands still stained from paint, the smell of fresh-cut wood in the air, I didn't feel like a homeowner. I felt like a survivor. I'd finally done something they couldn't touch. But I was wrong about that. It started on a Saturday. I had just come back from the grocery store, arms full, juggling keys and bags. The porch looked the same, nothing out of place. But when I pushed the door open, something didn't feel right. The lock had a soft give to it, like it hadn't been turned all the way. My heart skipped. I know myself. I double-check every lock before leaving, every time. I stepped in, slowly. Muffin wasn't at the door like usual. The living room was familiar, but off. The throw pillow was flipped. One of the hallway lights was on. There was a faint smell of perfume that wasn't mine. "Muffin?" I called, my voice too loud in the quiet. No answer. I found her under the couch, wide-eyed, tail stiff. That's when my stomach turned. I grabbed my phone and called Silas. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Did Mom say anything about coming by?" He hesitated, just long enough to make my chest tighten. "She mentioned your place," he said. I thought she was joking. That night, after pacing around the house and checking every corner twice, I sat down on the couch. My phone buzzed with a voicemail notification. It was Mom. "Hey, sweetheart. Just wanted to say thanks for letting us stop by. Your place is lovely. Really has potential. Thought it'd be nice to show Amberlyn, too. She's got such an eye for interiors." She never asked. No heads up, no knock, just walked in. And if I was hearing it right, she brought my brother's wife with her, like this was some kind of open house. That meant one thing, she had a key, which meant someone gave her one, or she had one made. I stared at the screen. The voicemail played again. This time, I caught the way she said, "us." Like I was the one who had stepped out of line. Like my boundaries were optional. I wanted to scream, but instead, I sat. Muffin climbed into my lap. The porch light flickered on outside as the sun dipped. I looked through the window at the house across the street, lights warm and yellow, the smell of grilled meat hanging faint in the air. Someone else's normal. "I thought locking the door was enough," I whispered, more to myself than the cat. I didn't know I'd have to lock my history, too. The swing creaked as I leaned back. I scrolled to her contact. My thumb hovered over the screen. They didn't knock. They just walked in. The porch light was still on when I got her text. Just 5 words. Let's sit down like family. No apology, no mention of the uninvited house tour, just that, like nothing ever happened, like boundaries hadn't been crossed, like trust hadn't been bruised. Part of me wanted to delete it, let the silence answer for me. But another part, maybe the same part that still left the porch light on every night, replied, "Okay, dinner works." I didn't tell anyone I was going. I didn't dress up, but I didn't go looking defeated either. Neutral. That was the safest bet with my family. Their house looked the same as always. Tidy. Southern. That specific kind of clean that feels rehearsed. Amberlynn opened the door with too much sparkle in her voice. "Well, look at you," she said, all smiles. "Miss Independent, you're brave, doing it all solo." Brave. Not smart, not capable. Brave. Like it was a gamble that might not pay off. Dinner was standard. Roast chicken. Creamed spinach. The conversation danced around everything but what mattered. Nobody asked about the house. Nobody said the word key. They just passed plates and smiled too hard. After the meal, Mom stood, grabbed a tray, and came back with coffee. Just 1 cup, placed it in front of me. "Made it just the way you like." I took a sip. It didn't taste wrong. It didn't taste like anything at all. At first, I thought I was just tired. I'd had a long week. Work had been draining. Maybe my brain was foggy from the stress. But then, the edges of things got softer. The room felt like it had been dipped in warm water. The faces around me started to blur, not physically, but in my mind. I excused myself. Stumbled down the hallway toward the bathroom, gripping the wall like it might run from me. I sat down on the cool tile, back against the door, breathing deep. I wasn't panicked, not yet. But something inside me whispered, "This is wrong." I splashed water on my face. Looked in the mirror. My eyes didn't look like mine. The drive home wasn't an option. Mom offered to take me. She didn't ask. She just stood there with her purse already over her shoulder, keys in hand. I don't remember much of the ride. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed. Shoes still on, phone buzzing with missed calls, my head pounding like I'd been hit with a brick wrapped in velvet. I stumbled into the kitchen to make coffee. On the counter was an envelope. My name in neat cursive on the front. I opened it. Inside was a document titled Co-Ownership Agreement, Property at Maple Ridge. It was dated 2 days ago. Below the header, 2 lines for signatures. One was mine, or it looked like mine. I stared at it, trying to remember writing it, trying to believe it was possible. But it wasn't. I'd never agreed to this, never signed anything like it. And yet there it was, inked, witnessed, notarized. Some people borrow sugar from neighbors. Mine borrowed my future and forged it back into a lie. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat down, the paper still in my hands, and stared at nothing for a long time. Then my phone buzzed again. A new notification. Mom had posted a photo. It was my house, my porch, my swing, my front garden with the half-dead marigolds. She was standing there in the picture, Amberlynn beside her, both smiling. The caption read, "So proud of my Yorim for doing the right thing, putting family first." I don't know what hit me harder. The image or the comments under it. People from church, old neighbors, even my high school English teacher. Amazing daughter. So rare to see such loyalty. Family over pride. Love this. I tried to untag myself. I couldn't. She didn't just steal my house. She stole the version of me that fought for it. She replaced it with someone docile, cooperative, grateful. I threw the coffee cup into the sink. It shattered. Muffin darted from the hallway, knocking over the small vase by the door. Water spilled across the floor. I didn't clean it up. I stared at the door. "I let them in," I whispered. "But I didn't invite this." I walked to my desk, pulled open the drawer, grabbed my laptop and opened it. If I couldn't remember everything, I'd make sure something did. I woke up earlier than usual, the kind of early that doesn't come with birdsong or sunshine, just a gnawing need to check something. The coffee machine clicked on like always. I didn't touch the mug. My stomach hadn't stopped turning since I opened that envelope yesterday. The document was still sitting on the table. I'd read it a dozen times. Co-ownership agreement, my name, my signature. It looked like mine. I knew it wasn't. I walked over to my laptop, opened the security app, replayed the front porch camera. Nothing out of place, just me being dropped off. I scrubbed forward. Then, silence. The camera stopped, froze, jumped ahead, exactly 2 hours missing. From the moment I walked in until long after I should have been asleep, I tried the backup. Nothing, no logs, no files, just an error message like I'd imagined it all. I sat there, blinking at the screen. I needed proof, not paranoia, I whispered. But they left me with just enough doubt to destroy both. I opened a second tab to distract myself, checked my bank account. That's when I found it. A charge from a locksmith service. From a week ago. Billed to my credit card. I hadn't called anyone. The timestamp? The same day Mom and Amberlynn visited my house without warning. I clicked deeper, scrolled through past transactions. Then it hit me. Another charge, a large withdrawal the day after the dinner. Not from my main card, but from an old secondary account I forgot I even had. It was still linked, still active, still under my mother's name. They didn't even need to steal, I muttered. They just waited for me to forget what I gave away too easily. I closed the browser, stood up, walked the house. Curtains, closed. I opened them all. Light hit the walls like it was searching for something too. The couch cushions had been moved, the throw blanket folded differently. The dimmer switch was lower than I ever left it. I walked through each room slowly. There was no mess, nothing taken, but everything felt claimed. Muffin was curled in the laundry room, half hidden behind the basket. She didn't come out when I called. I stood in the middle of the hallway and whispered, "A house remembers hands that touched it without love, so does a heart." The silence was heavier than usual. I sat down at the kitchen table again, grabbed a legal pad, began writing. Who had access? What was changed? What did I actually sign? The list grew. My hand shook, but I kept writing. I thought about calling Mom. I could picture the conversation, her soft voice, the passive tone. "Honey, you're overthinking again. Don't be dramatic. We're just trying to help." Help. I pushed the thought out. Maybe legal action was better. Maybe not. I didn't know if any lawyer would believe me without solid proof. If I couldn't prove I was drugged or coerced, it would be my word against theirs. Still, I wasn't just shocked anymore. I was preparing. If I couldn't find the truth, I told myself, I'd have to build it, brick by digital brick. That evening, I sat at my desk, flipping through my notes when a ping pulled my attention. Instagram. Amberlynn had posted a story. It was from 3 days ago, a short clip of my backyard patio. She was standing there with a glass of wine, smiling into the camera. The caption, "Future plans coming soon. This spot's gonna shine." I didn't blink, just sat there, staring at the screen. They weren't just walking through my house. They were planning its future without me. The message came on a Thursday morning, just after I'd opened my laptop to check my work schedule. It was from Carla, an old coworker I hadn't spoken to in over a year. "Congrats on the listing. Didn't know you were selling. Place looks amazing." My chest tightened. I clicked the link she sent without even reading the rest of the text. There it was. Photos of my home, my bedroom, my kitchen, my patio. Someone had taken professional interior shots. I hadn't authorized any of it. I hadn't listed anything. The headline read, "Charming family property with investment potential." I scrolled to the bottom. Listed by Denise Quaid, Amberlynn's friend. The one who tagged me in a house-flipping post a month back. The one who'd toured my house with my mother. I slammed the laptop shut and stood still. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just my address they posted. It was my silence, monetized. I got in the car, didn't bother changing out of my old jeans and hoodie. I needed to see it for myself, needed to be sure I wasn't imagining it again. The driveway was empty when I pulled in. The front door was locked. I stood on the porch, looking for anything out of place. It all looked normal, until it didn't. The rug in the hallway was crooked. There was a lavender candle burning in the living room. I don't own lavender candles. I walked through the house slowly, documenting every room on my phone. No broken windows, no signs of forced entry. But the scent, the arrangement, things had been touched. In the kitchen, a folded card sat beside the coffee pot. Great seeing your place. The light in the living room is to die for. D. I stared at it like it had teeth. They'd been back. Again. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even cuss. I just stood there and let the stillness pour in like wet concrete. That night, I texted Amber Lynn. You listed my house? Her reply was quick, too casual. Oh, that. Mom said it was fine. Denise just needed photos to pitch a few ideas. Nothing's official. Nothing's official. I didn't answer. 2 days later, I pulled into my driveway earlier than planned. I'd left work an hour early after a migraine made it impossible to concentrate. There were 4 women standing on my lawn. Strangers, middle-aged, dressed like a yoga retreat promo. One had a camera around her neck. And there, standing on my porch, was Marilee, my mother, holding a glass pitcher of cucumber water. She saw me pull up, didn't flinch, just smiled and said, We're doing a wellness walkthrough. Amberlyn thinks this space would be perfect for yoga weekends. Isn't that exciting? I didn't get out of the car. I didn't speak. The women smiled politely. One of them waved. I kept the engine running. They snapped pictures of my flower beds. I sat there and watched them plan a future I had no part in. Once they left, I went inside and locked the door. Every lock. Every bolt. I took the candle, the throw pillows, the guest towels, the wicker basket by the front window, and put them in a trash bag. I placed a single chair in the hallway, sat down, and stared at the front door for over an hour. Not because I was scared, but because I'd had enough. They were building a life out of the pieces they assumed I wouldn't fight for. That night, I printed the property deed, put it in a frame, hung it above the fireplace like it was a family portrait. It was the only name that mattered, mine. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing the next day. I went to the hardware store, bought a new indoor camera system, motion sensors, glass break detectors, installed them all myself. Each sensor, each wire, each tiny beep was a line they could no longer cross without consequence. Later that evening, I turned off every light in the house. The last one was in the hallway, right by the front door. As soon as the switch clicked off, my phone buzzed. New notification. 1 word. Movement. Saturday morning. I'd been out running errands, paint still clinging to the sleeve of my sweatshirt from touching up the shed door. I was tired but proud, productive in a way that had nothing to do with proving anything to anyone. As I turned into the driveway, a silver SUV was already parked at the curb. A woman, maybe mid-50s, leaned out her window and waved at me like I was a valet. Hi, can you let the agent know I'm early? I'm here for the walkthrough. I blinked. I wasn't wearing makeup. My hair was pulled back. I looked like someone who lived alone and didn't owe the world a polished version of herself. I live here, I said. The woman flushed, fumbling with her sunglasses. Oh, I thought, well, you just looked like you were cleaning. That one landed. If they couldn't sell the house, they'd sell my identity instead. I didn't respond, just walked into the house and closed the door behind me. Slowly. I didn't tell anyone about it. Not at first. But a few hours later, I called Silas. He picked up on the 3rd ring. Hey, what's up? He asked, voice casual, distracted. Did you know the house is listed? A beat, then. What? No. I mean, I knew Amberlyn mentioned some ideas, but I didn't think she actually did anything. You didn't ask? Silence. You know how Mom gets, he said finally. And Amberlyn just wants to help. She listed my house, Silas. He exhaled. Not guilty, just tired. I don't know, Yorim. Maybe don't take everything so personally. You've always been intense about stuff. That was the moment I stopped defending myself. When people stop defending you, they start explaining you. I didn't yell. I didn't hang up. I just said, "Got it," and ended the call. That night, I went through a drawer I hadn't touched in weeks, old mail, receipts, and my planner, where I found a folded sheet of paper that didn't belong. It was tucked between grocery lists and to-do reminders. I unfolded it slowly. "Don't give her too much. She still needs to be clear enough to sign." The handwriting wasn't my mother's. It was too tidy, too clean. The lowercase g curled sharp at the bottom. I stood there for minutes before it hit me. Amberlyn. She'd written something similar once, stuck to our fridge, reminders for a 4th of July menu, the same pen color, the same loops. It wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated trust theft. I sat down, gripping the note. My house was being sold out from under me, and they were doing it with smiles and cucumbers and comments like, "She's always been a little unstable." I turned on my indoor cameras, reviewed the last few days, normal footage mostly, me moving around, Muffin prowling near the window. But on Wednesday afternoon, there was a flicker. The hallway feed went dark for 22 seconds. It came back on with no alert. I rewound, slowed it down. Just before the glitch, someone walked past the camera. A woman in a silk scarf I didn't recognize. Zooming in, I caught the side profile. Denise? Amberlyn's friend. The same woman who toured my home weeks ago. She'd been inside again, while I was at work. I opened a new notebook and wrote on the first page in red ink, "If they gaslight me, I'll light the truth." That night, I went through my phone's call log, not because I suspected anything, but because I couldn't sleep. The noise inside my head was louder than the one outside. Scrolling through, I stopped cold. There was a call to the county land office, 11 minutes long. Made 2 days after the dinner where I blacked out. I stared at the screen. I hadn't called them, but someone using my voice did. I drove to the county land office that morning. The parking lot was half full, birds picking at stale crumbs near the steps. It was early enough to avoid waiting, but late enough to avoid being the first voice they'd hear that day. Inside, I gave my name and asked if they could check their call logs. The woman behind the desk was polite. She asked if I was Jareem Kincaid, then smiled faintly like she knew the name. "Yes, we spoke to you about your deed update," she said, typing into her system. I didn't interrupt. She continued. "You asked about guardianship transfer, stated you wanted to ensure someone responsible could oversee your affairs. You seemed emotional, but firm. I asked for a copy of the request. She nodded, offered to fax it. I waited in silence near the hallway. The buzzing sound of the machine sounded like static inside my skull. The letter came out warm and curled at the edges. I held it. My name was there, my handwriting, my signature. I stood still for a long moment. I didn't give them my consent. I gave them my vulnerability. They turned it into paperwork. I folded the page slowly, left without saying much. Thanked the woman like she'd just passed me a brochure, not evidence of a stolen life. Back in my car, I sat with the windows up, breathing shallow. I wasn't sure if I was shaking from anger or betrayal, maybe both. That afternoon, I scheduled a checkup with my primary doctor. Nothing serious, just a routine annual visit. Or so I said. He was friendly, like always. We talked about my sleep patterns, stress, the usual fluff they ask before the real work begins. Then I asked, casually, if anyone in my family had reached out about me. He paused, flipped a page in his notes. "Well, your mother sent over some observations a few weeks ago." He hesitated. I nodded. "Go ahead. I need to hear it from someone neutral." He read without looking up. Noted emotional withdrawal. Expressed paranoia. Confusion. Displayed instability around decisions involving finances and independence. I didn't blink. I thanked him, told him everything else was fine, that I just needed to know. On the way out, he asked if I needed a referral. I said, "No, I'm not sick." I wasn't. I was surrounded. That evening, I sat down at my dining table with a notepad and wrote a name, Diane Brooks, a lawyer I remembered from a local seminar on domestic legal rights. She handled guardianship abuse and elder control cases. I emailed her. She replied within an hour. The next day, I walked into her office and met a younger associate, Jacob. He looked fresh out of law school, but had the sharp tone of someone who paid attention. He listened as I walked through the documents, the fake co-ownership, the forged email, the suspicious call, and now, the medical framing. He nodded through it, took notes. Without audio or video evidence of coercion, he said, we're in a consent gray zone. But the call log, the timing, and a handwriting comparison might shift the balance. I said, I don't want to press criminal charges yet. I want to take my name back. He agreed to start a notice of asset retraction. He called it identity misuse within a family context. It was cold, technical, but it was something. They wanted a version of me that couldn't fight back, I told him before I left. Instead, they made me more dangerous. At home, I dug through my old notebooks, pulled out holiday cards, signed letters, anything with my actual handwriting. I scanned them, uploaded them to a site that offered forensic analysis. 24 hours later, I had results. Probability of match between my real handwriting and the county's letter. Less than 62%. Similar. Sure. Identical. Not even close. I sent the results to Jacob. He replied within minutes. We have leverage. Do you want to move forward? I stared at the email. Then typed back, file it. That night, I made a folder called Just in Case. I scanned everything. Every legal form, every note, every message. Uploaded it to a cloud drive, password protected. Shared with one person, my lawyer. As I uploaded the final file, my phone buzzed. A text from Silas. Mom's upset. She says you're acting dangerous. Should we come by? I stared at the screen, the glow lighting up the room around me like a warning flare. I was done being the patient in their story. It was time to be the witness. The video was still sitting in my cloud backup, half labeled and half forgotten. I'd been staring at my inbox for half an hour, waiting on a follow-up from Jacob. Instead, I opened an old folder from my laptop, one I didn't even remember naming. Inside, an autosave file, blurry, low light, barely audible, but there. I clicked play. The screen flickered. My face came into view, washed out in the yellow glow of my parents' kitchen. My voice was shaky, slurred. I don't feel right. I think something's wrong. There was the sound of footsteps, laughter. My mother's voice, muffled but unmistakable. I leaned in. I watched myself say, "Did you put something in this?" The footage skipped, cut out before I could finish the sentence. You never expect to watch your own gaslighting in 720p. But there it was, a record, not polished, not edited, just enough to make them nervous. I sent it to Jacob without a note. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. The county rejected your retraction, he said. They cited confirmation via email. What email? You sent one, or they say you did. Time-stamped at 3:07 a.m. the night after the dinner. He forwarded the message. Subject: regarding my decision to consolidate property with family. It was signed. My name. My phrasing. But I didn't write it. Didn't open my laptop that night. Didn't even know my password at that hour. I could barely walk straight. You can't prove someone didn't type while unconscious. That's the genius of digital crime. But I wasn't going to play the victim of a clever scheme. Not anymore. I walked into my office, locked the door, and pulled out every document I'd collected, real and fake. I printed everything, marked it, sorted it, one binder for truth, one for forgery, color-coded tabs and a title, Proof of Personhood. I bought a voice recorder. From then on, every phone call was saved, labeled, archived. I put the binders in a lockbox under my desk and backed up the files twice, once to a drive, once to encrypted cloud. They wanted me overwhelmed, I whispered, recording the words just for me. They forgot I was trained to save lives during chaos. The next morning, I met Jacob in person. I handed him a thumb drive, no explanation. He looked at it, then back at me. Is this the clip? I nodded. We'll need to prep. If this goes to court, let it. He hesitated. They'll spin this. I stood. Let them. I'm done spinning back. That night, I sent out calendar invites to the people who built this circus. Subject: my final word. Amberlynn responded with a thumbs-up emoji. Silas wrote, "Do we need to bring anything?" My mother replied, "I'll make dessert." I didn't respond to any of them. I cleaned the dining room, polished the table, laid out copies of every document I planned to show them, made room for the projector. This wasn't a dinner. It was a reckoning. As I set down the last chair, my phone buzzed, an unlisted number. Voicemail came in before I could answer. I played it. My mother's voice, soft and scolding. "We need to talk before you ruin everything." I didn't laugh, didn't cry. I just sat there, letting her words circle the room like steam rising off something too bitter to serve. I wasn't going to ruin anything. I was going to reveal it. I set the table like it was any other dinner. Forks aligned, napkins folded, water glasses filled just to the halfway point. Nothing too warm, nothing too cold. I wanted no distractions, no excuses for anyone to pretend this was still about chicken and conversation. They all showed up. Silas with his stiff shoulders and tired eyes. Amberlynn, of course, carrying a bottle of wine she never opened. Dee came last, quiet as usual, clutching a sweater she didn't wear. And Mom, well, merrily floated in like she was entering a church potluck. She even brought a pie. We sat. I didn't. Instead, I stood at the head of the table, holding a single sheet of paper. "You're not here for food," I said, voice calm. "You're here for facts." No one moved. Amberlynn offered a thin smile. Mom poured water. "I know about the forged call to the county," I began. "About the fake email. About the letter you typed under my name and the diagnostics you whispered into my doctor's voicemail." Mom blinked. "Joram, honey." I held up my hand. "This isn't about forgiveness. This is about the campaign you built, without my consent, to rewrite who I am." I laid out each piece: timeline, logins, signatures, video, audio, call records. Silas looked at his lap. Amberlynn pressed her lips together. Merrily, she reached for the wine. "No," I said, "you don't get to numb this down." The silence grew heavier than the food on the table. Then Mom tried her tactic. "I just wanted to keep you safe. You were unraveling." I pulled out the final folder, laid it on the table like a final bet in a game I didn't ask to play. Inside, my father's life insurance. A copy of the check, date stamped, addressed to me and only me. "The house wasn't purchased with family money," I said. "It wasn't gifted. It wasn't borrowed. It came from him. And he gave it to me." I opened to the last page and read aloud. "Beneficiary, Joram Kincaid." Nobody spoke. "They tried to erase my name from the deed," I said. "They forgot who signed the check." Amberlynn tried to lighten the air after dinner. Said she had a birthday gift she forgot to drop off earlier. She handed me a box. I opened it slowly. Inside, a scarf. Pale blue. I recognized it instantly. I'd bought it for Mom 3 years ago. The faint stitches in the corner still spelled my initials. They'd rewrapped a piece of my past like it was a brand new offering. They've been recycling my worth back to me like it was never mine to begin with. I didn't say thank you. I just folded the scarf and set it aside. After the table was cleared, I stepped out onto the porch for air. Silas followed. "Is there any way to fix this?" he asked. I turned to him. "Not while Mom still thinks I'm a mistake she can undo." I walked back inside, handed them each an envelope. No emotion. Adjust delivery. Inside, a cease and desist letter from my attorney. Property trespass notice. Future contact to be arranged through legal channels. "I'm not asking for respect anymore," I said. "I've filed for it." No one argued. They took their coats. Dee kissed my cheek before she left. Amberlynn didn't look me in the eye. Mom, last to go, touched my shoulder as if she might still win this by pretending she hadn't already lost it. I didn't move. Later that night, I poured myself a glass of water and sat down on the couch, picked up my phone. A notification from the dining room camera popped up. I tapped it. There, frozen mid-frame, was a shot auto-snapped during the dinner. Amberlynn, Silas, Dee, Mara Lee, all seated around the table. Everyone was in it, except me. I was the one hosting, and yet somehow I wasn't in the picture. I zoomed in. Maybe I wasn't missing. Maybe I was just finally out of their picture. The porch swing creaked beneath me, just like it did the first day I moved in. But this time, the silence didn't sting. It sat beside me like an old friend who finally stopped demanding answers. Muffin was curled at my feet, tail flicking gently. She hadn't hidden in weeks. I sipped coffee, not to wake up, but because I liked the warmth in my hands. There were no messages, no calls, no checking in texts masked as concern. And I wasn't waiting for them. I'd spent years trying to be seen. Now I didn't care if I was included. I don't need to be in the picture anymore, I whispered to no one. I've built my own frame. A few days after the dinner, I noticed things shifting, quietly, as they always did in this town. The post Amberlyn made about the house, gone. Not a word, no apology, just vanished. Denise resigned from her real estate agency. I didn't ask for that. I didn't need to. The neighbors who once waved too hard now just nodded. Some smiled with a little more weight behind it, some didn't speak at all. One left a letter in my mailbox. Your quiet strength made more noise than their chaos ever could. I folded it and slid it into the lockbox with the rest of the paperwork. It didn't feel like winning. It felt like oxygen. One afternoon, Dee stopped by. No text, no call, just her small car in the driveway and her knocking on the screen door. I opened it without a word. She didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't make small talk. She just hugged me, tight, then pulled back and said, "You deserved better than all of us gave you." That was all. We sat on the swing together, not filling the silence. Sometimes healing isn't a hug, it's a pause that doesn't hurt. The next day, I went down to the courthouse and updated every legal document tied to my name: power of attorney, medical proxy, property deed, locked, notarized, mine. I closed the old bank account, revoked every connected user. Even found one tied to an email I hadn't used since 2013. Shut it all down. I created a new cloud drive and named it Freedom Files. Then I stood in the backyard, looked around, and decided it was time for something real to grow. I bought soil, seedlings, a trowel with a yellow handle, started planting a small garden by the back fence, just herbs and a few tomatoes, but it felt right, like I was planting something no one else could touch. Before I went to bed, I screwed a small plaque into the front gate. It read, "Private property, peace maintained." Simple, quiet, like me. That night, I did something I hadn't done in months. I left the front door unlocked. The porch light stayed on. Muffin walked outside, circled the yard like she owned it, then padded back in. I didn't call for her. I just left the door open. This time, I'm not afraid of who walks in, because this house is mine, and so am I.